VTuber. Wait. Tuber lore. Doesn't matter. If I miss your questions or statements or so on and so forth, just re-ask them. Just don't spam it is all I ask. Okay. So, I'm going to try to be as impartial to this as possible, and I'm going to be coming at this from outside the box. Okay, looking in. So does lore matter? Yes. Lore can matter, right? And let's talk about why. Yes, it can matter, as it can cause a connection with you and the persons / viewers watching you. Okay. And sorry, I gotta delete that. So it can cause a connection between you as the VTuber and the person that has read your lore, has watched your lore, so on and so forth. It definitely could cause a connection. Another thing in the yes category is, I love how the spamming happens as I'm doing an educational video. Thank you. Which also threw me off track. Crap, what was I saying? But yeah, not only can it cause a connection, it can get you, the VTuber, in a state of mind. And when you get into a certain state of mind, you get more entertaining, you get more creative, and it gets you on a ball that's rolling. Okay? Now, there are a lot of other positive things about lore. Sapphire made a great video on that, actually. If you haven't checked it out, go to Sapphire's channel, check out her lore video. It was a VTuber's podcast video. Fantastic video. But I'm going to discuss more on the no. And I feel like the no is not really ever covered. So let's talk about no, why lore doesn't really matter. Okay. Now, a lot of people feel like lore will bring viewers to your stream. Unfortunately, unless your lore is very top notch and a very attractive, it grabs your attention, it doesn't bring viewers to you. Okay? Another thing lore doesn't do is doesn't make the viewer stay. Another thing is it doesn't enhance your stream unless you know how to entertain. Okay. Another big problem that I see with lore, and this is a massive problem that I see a lot on Twitter and a lot on Reddit, is people focus on lore so much that it prevents them. We'll move this up. It prevents them from making content and going live. They think that the lore is so imperative to their success that they are not willing to do anything other than that lore. And you all can find this information if you want to. You could spend maybe 10 minutes searching on Twitter, for example, and you can find people burnt out on VTubing by just doing lore. And that's scary. That's very scary. That people are investing so much time, so much effort, so much brain power into lore that they're actually burning themselves out. Which isn't really good, right? We don't want that. We don't want that at all. So, what's another thing about lore that we don't talk about? There is quite a bit of things. Lore needs to be, let's actually take this. Things we don't think about with lore. A lot of people, especially in the VTuber community, I notice when they give streaming advice, especially that the people that give streaming advice that have never gone live ever, is they say be yourself. They always say with somebody that made 2 weeks worth of lore to be yourself. The problem with lore is you're not yourself. You're playing as something else, someone else. Unless you're going to tie that lore into your real life or real aspects of you, typically you're playing a character. Now, there is one streamer out there that has a lore that actually plays into the lore better than any VTuber out there. Does anybody know who this person may be? This person that has such amazing lore, and not only do they have amazing lore, but every time they go live, they go into it. They go into character every single time, and it's not a VTuber. I will give you guys a hint on who it could be. It's not a VTuber though. This is your hint. He's not a VTuber. The person I'm talking about is DrDisrespect. DrDisrespect is honestly always in character. Their lore is a part of who they actually are. Every live stream he does, anything he does, he's in character. He's always talking about how he's the two-time back-to-back 1993-1994 champion. And DrDisrespect has actually been doing this lore for many years. In fact, he's been doing it longer than anybody. 12 years ago, DrDisrespect started his character. It's very weird, it's very cringy, but he started this a decade ago, more than a decade ago, and he stuck with it. 12 years. Girl DM's AI cat girl thing came out after, and this is what I want to present to you all. Yeah, Filthy Frank's another one. Yeah, absolutely. You don't need lore when you start. In fact, what you should do, in my honest, humble opinion, is you should honestly let your lore develop over time with your community. Okay. Let your community develop your persona. Let your community develop your lore. I see a lot of time, more times than not, people make this giant lore. They put a lot of effort into the lore, but it's nothing like them whatsoever, which is okay if you could do that. But what they do is they try to play into the persona, and it doesn't work. And then they start hating their character, they start hating their VTuber model, and they start hating their lore. And then a lot of the times they stop. Isn't that how Iron Mouse went about it? Yeah, she started out without a lore and then let her community develop it. A lot of VTubers do that. A lot of successful VTubers do that. You don't need a lore to be successful. It's not a necessary thing. But another thing we don't think about lore is people will spend loads of time on it. But, and this is the huge but, never use it. After their debut. So what they'll do is they'll come up with this very fancy lore. They'll debut it with their model. They'll talk about it for their very first stream. And then we'll never hear about it again. They don't stay in character or anything like that either. So what you guys should do, that spend time making lore, you should actually post it on your Twitch page. Senpai, where on my Twitch page should I post my lore? Great question, LittleTimmy. I'm really glad you asked that. And it should be close to the very top. Let's give an example. I won't know because I didn't put up a Twitch panel. There we go. Sorry, my old stream was playing. Your lore should be somewhere around here, somewhere close to the top. Instead of having an about me, have a lore. And have the lore presented to people. Give people a chance to read it. Because when they join your live stream, when they first look at your videos, they can't expect you to restate your lore every single time. As such, no matter how long your lore is, put it on your page or put it in your description of your YouTube videos. So if somebody wants to look up your lore, they can. Another great place to post your lore is on your Discord. In your Discord, you should have like an about XYZ streamer. And then have one little tab there that says lore. And then have your lore posted in that little tab as well. So again, if somebody's interested in your lore, they could go there and they could read it. But what a lot of people don't do, which is very, very sad, to me at least, is they just keep their lore in writing. What you guys should do, if you have the patience, if you have the willingness to learn and willingness to learn skills, is make your lore into a YouTube video. Why do I say that? Because humans are lazy. When was the last time anybody actually read a book? When was the last time a lot of us, and let's be very honest with ourselves, read more than a paragraph? Nowadays, we consume most of our entertainment through video. And if you can make a 30-second, a 1 minute, a 2 minute, a 3 minute video about your lore, doesn't have to be fancy editing, doesn't have to be fancy anything, that would be more beneficial than having it typed out somewhere. Then you can have your lore as your YouTube channel trailer. You could also have it on your YouTube or on your Twitch channel trailer, right? Where it's just so easy for people to see it, because on Twitch, it autoplays. On YouTube, as soon as they land on your YouTube page, it also autoplays. So they'll hear your lore in the background as they're scrolling down on your pages, right? And they can replay it as many times as they want, over and over and over again, which is great, which is fantastic, right? It makes it much more easier. So for a lot of the people out there, consider putting your lore into video format as well. Do both. Why not? So a lot of people also ask me, hey, Senpai, how long should my lore be? Okay. Great question. So let's talk about lore length. Whoops. How long should lore be? Well, lore could be a couple of sentences or a paragraph, right? But the longer the lore is, the more it has to be captivating. And honestly, you got to think about that. So if you have a very short lore, and let's pull up some examples. I went around a great website called VTuber. This is an example of a lore that I found on VTuber. This person is a water dragon who woke up from her hibernation in the mountains of Canada and descended to see what humans have been up to. That's the entire lore. It's very short. It's concise. It says what they are, what they're doing, so on and so forth. Another one that I saw that was kind of interesting was this one. A Catboy computer virus that was created with the sole purpose of stealing your information and your hearts. He decided the best way to do that was to become a VTuber. Okay. That's a good lore, right? These two are very short. It's pretty good, right? Right? Awesome. It gets straight to the point. It tells you who they are, what their goals or what they're doing on this earth, if you want to call it that. These are good short lores. But we got to talk about a bad lore. This lore I see repeated by multiple VTubers all the time. Okay? My name is XYZ. I'm a failed science experiment. And my God, the amount of people that they are a failed science experiment as their lore, I swear, there are so many doctors that got their education, or mad scientists that got their education from Crayola. It's ridiculous. But there are so many VTubers out there. There are failed science experiments, or the other one that I see so many times, an alien from space to invade. Okay? So they'll be like, my name is XYZ. I'm a failed science experiment / an alien from space to invade Earth. Right? Oh, yeah. Or ancient dragons or ancient demons. Oh my god. Copy pasta, like so many of those. Okay. There's so many examples of so on and so forth. Right? But it's their name, they're a failed science experiment, they're invading, blah, 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 blah. And you know what else they say? Come watch me. So we got all these failed science experiments, aliens, ancient demons, ancient dragons, so on and so forth. And they write down, come watch me. Why would I want to do that? What makes me want to watch anything you make if you're so lazy? Because let's call it how it is. It's laziness. If this is all the effort you want to put into a lore. If you're going to do a lore, do a lore. Right? Don't half-ass something, whole-ass everything. Ron Swanson. What's a good lore? A good lore should have, in my opinion, should have these things. Who you are. Right? Your background. Right? What you plan to do. And as you're doing your lore, you need to think about the reader. Most lores that are made selfishly. Okay. And honestly, Senpai, I wouldn't call it laziness. I just call it not the forte of anyone. No, I call it laziness, straight up. If you could write a school paper, which we all have done, you could spend more time. If you're passionate about it and you want to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, you could spend time into it. But instead, people will spend 8, 10, 11 hours streaming at a time, but they won't put 20 minutes into a lore. But, and honestly, chat, this is just my opinion. You guys can change it up as much as you want, so on and so forth. But a lot of lore is a lot of selfish lore. What you got to do is you got to think about your favorite show, your favorite anime, your favorite TV show. Think about the main character, right? Think about, if you read books, if you read manga, if you read comics, and there's the main character or a character that you like in there. Why do you care? Why do you care about that person? And when you're coming up with a lore, and when you're doing your lore, you got to give a reason for the person who's reading to care about you. And if you can make somebody care about your character, about your lore, you got a shoe in the door. You do. Coming up with a good lore is a skill, though. Absolutely, Garrus. I 100% agree with that. It is a skill. But you guys gotta, when you're making these things, you gotta make sure, you gotta give the people that are reading or watching a reason to care about you and a reason to remember, right? Out of all the lores that you guys remember, or that you've heard of, how many do you actually remember? Right? I've been presented so many lores, I don't remember a lot of them. Because none of them had an impact. None of them stuck out. That's something you guys got to think about. Right? What's the impact that this can have on that person? Right? So, let's look at a good lore. Something I thought was interesting. I thought it was neat. I thought there was a lot of effort put into it. Now, I'm going to have to break this up like 10 billion times because Notepad sucks. I mean, not Notepad, our very advanced software that nobody else can ever afford because it's so advanced. But this lore is like a mile long, as everyone can see. But here we go. Name redacted. Everyone knew him, yet no one knew them. The world's most notorious hacker. Usually get in for the money and notoriety. Using the alias Ghost. One night they found a gold mine. A way to expose all for their customers and their targets simultaneously. But it wouldn't come without a price. Sucked into their own string of ones and zeros, Ghost was trapped, becoming their own data. The only way to reconnect with the real world again was a way to get their face out there, to hope someone would find them and save them. They found the easiest way to do was... They found the easiest way to do so was to stream. And as it allowed them to relax and enjoy favorite pastimes of theirs, gaming, and also allowed them to connect with the real world they once knew. Maybe one day they will be free. That was a good lore. Talked about who they are, their background, and what they plan to do. Right? And these are things you guys gotta think about, talk about. It was an interesting lore. This lore made me want to look into this person, interact with them, hang out with them. The lore was great, but there's something else that goes hand in hand with the lore. And what is that? Well, they need to have the ability to entertain. Because again, lore, like I said in the beginning, will only take you so far. So, if your lore attracts me to your stream, are you able to keep me engaged? Are you able to keep me there? If you aren't able to do that, the lore means nothing. All that time you put into it means nothing. A lot of you may not like hearing that, but it's true. You hooked me in with this. You did. But if I go to your stream and you're sitting there and you're just playing video games and you're not talking to chat and you're not entertaining, and all you are is just focused on your ranked match, which is something we talked about last stream. That lore that you spent so much time on and got me hooked on is now forgotten and wasted. Lore is a small part of who you are. A lore could definitely help you out. It definitely could. But if you cannot act on that lore, if you don't even use the lore, then why have it? Right? And if you're someone that can't write lore because you don't know how, because you don't have the knowledge, the practice, the know-how, whatever we want to call it, and you really want to lore, ask a friend. Join my Discord. We're going to be making 2 channels. Thorn doesn't know about it yet, but Thorn's going to be making me 2 channels in a second. Hopefully, one of them's going to be lore. Share your lore is going to be the one channel name. The other channel name is Lore Critique, which means you can post in your lore and people from the community will give some advice. Because we always talk about lore. We always talk about good lore, bad lore, boring lore, entertaining lore. But there is no place in the VTubing hemisphere where you could actually get critique with and help with. And we will here at this academy. We will do that here on this YouTube channel. I will go through lore. I will talk about lore a little bit more, and we'll review lore on stream. We'll poke into it. We'll see if it's entertaining. So on and so forth. But yes, just like Sunflower just said, also get your community, get your viewers involved. You could actually use your lore as content. You can actually use this lore to bring a community close together. You could make it a project for everybody, where everybody can have an input and have these people that are your base viewers, your starter viewers, feel connected. And I feel like that would be a far more powerful lore than something you wrote yourself and you spent weeks and weeks and weeks on. Right? This is something that you could use as an advantage for yourself, for your brand, for your viewers, to get viewers. Right? It's crazy. No, that's perfect, Lauren. Thank you. So, is lore important? Yeah, it can be. It can help out your stream. But at the same time, you can't let the lore rule you. You cannot let a mental block on your lore prevent you from making content. You cannot let this lore prevent you from moving forward. Lore can be done over and over again. It can be redone over and over again. Just because you have lore now doesn't mean it can't be 100% different down the road. It could change all the time if you wanted to. And that's okay. Because you as a streamer will change. Who you start out as in the beginning of your streaming and content creation career will not be the same person at the end of it. And between the beginning and the end, you're going to be changing a lot. You will be, I promise you. There will be a lot of change. You don't think there will be, but there will be. Right? I've changed so many times myself. Sapphire has changed so many times herself. Right? The lore is a tool that is used to connect people, but it's not necessary. True, Sunflower. True. Right? So, Garrus also said earlier, substance and delivery, right? There are so many things for you guys to think about. And there's so many positives and negative sides about lore. If you cannot come up with a lore, reach out to people. Make one over time. But if you really can't think of one or formulate one, don't do it. Not necessary. Move on. Do better things. Put that time into other things, like making a YouTube video or a live stream. It'll get you a lot further than 2 sentences about I'm XYZ from the planet Mars and I'm here to invade your bedroom. Okay. All right.